Masters of Lore, thank you for joining me for this installment of the Brothers' War story. Now, because we're dealing with time travel, we've been going all over the place. So far, it's all been in the past, but this part of the story actually takes place in the present. So this continues on from the Dominaria United storyline and is roughly 1 month from when the events of that happened and Karn was taken off to New Phyrexia. So we find ourselves in this part of the story following Teferi. He has been going on different planeswalking journeys, and he's just returned to Urza's tower, a very special tower, which is over 4,000 years old and is hidden deep in a mist-shrouded veil. Somehow, it's managed to avoid being destroyed over the years. So when Teferi arrives back to this tower, he finds that Jodah is already there waiting for him. It turns out that Jodah has laid an intruder alarm spell on the tower, so he is aware of when anyone arrives, and he decided to surprise Teferi with some breakfast, which is a very nice gesture. He brought him some tea and biscuits. And so since Teferi had been gone for a week, he settles down, they comfortably start to sip the tea. Teferi picks up the biscuit, takes a bite into it, and immediately feels like something is off with it. So he asks Jodah, are these biscuits supposed to taste like this? And Jodah reaches out and takes a bite himself, and he goes, you know what, actually, I think there might be a problem here with the roach flour. At which point Teferi just drops the biscuit and refuses to eat anymore, just having tea from that point on. They had relocated to Urza's tower because Jodah had insisted on them finding a new base. The mana rig was no longer secure. Urza's tower was where they ended up. Teferi originally didn't want to go there, but gave into the decision of the others. And he had been out collecting up different planeswalkers to assist them in their goal. So Kea and Saheeli Rai had already been brought on board, but Teferi had just returned with Ren and Seven, and it was a pretty difficult task to convince her to come back, so it took him a lot of time to make it happen. But ultimately, while he was gone, other planeswalkers had turned up to the tower as well. Elspeth had turned up looking for a Johnny, and she was livid. She has a close connection with the Johnny, and she absolutely demanded to know what was going on in the situation. You also had Vivian Reed, who had appeared with information that she had garnered over on Capenna. So you have this massive amalgamation of planeswalkers getting together. And Teferi knew that Elspeth was really close to a Johnny. So he was apologizing to Elspeth, but at the same time, he was very concerned about her because the fact that she was close to a Johnny could mean that she's also been converted into being a Phyrexian. So while he wanted to get her on board, at the same time, he had that level of paranoia where he doesn't know if he should fully trust her. Now, more planeswalkers are involved. You actually have Jace, who was on Ravnica lobbying for the guild support. Now, considering that he was once the guild pact, he's the natural choice for this. Chandra is also away. She is seeking Nissa, so ideally they're going to return together. But here's where it gets really crazy. A planeswalker we have not seen in forever and wondered if he was alive, Koth. Turns out he's actually alive. How we know this isn't 100% clear. Jace has the information, but it's not explained how he got the information. So Koth is actually with the remaining Mirrans. And if you didn't know, Koth was a planeswalker who lived on the world of Mirrodin before Mirrodin got converted into the world of New Phyrexia. He was part of the forces that were fighting back against the Phyrexians, trying to basically evict them off of the world. Now, we all know how that went as Phyrexia ruled supreme, but Koth and the Mirrans were kind of driven underground, and it was presumed that his life had ended. But now it turns out that Koth and the remaining Mirrans not only are surviving, but they're going to be attacking the Phyrexian core. So they're going to try and do a plan similar to what's tried before. And Elspeth actually is very unhappy with this. It's like, we have tried a plan like this before. She was involved with a plan to try and take out the New Phyrexia situation with Koth specifically. So this is a situation where she basically turns her back and refuses to be a part of it and stalks out of there. After Elspeth departs, Vivian explains to Teferi that Urabrask is planning to move against Elish Norn. The other Praetors all march in lockstep with Elish Norn, but Urabrask is planning a revolution. He does not believe in Elish Norn's vision of one flesh metal singularity. And so as a result, you have a situation where Koth is going to make a strike. You have a situation where Urabrask is going to make a strike. And essentially, all of the Planeswalkers will make a strike at the same time so that they can take down Phyrexia once and for all using the Silex. And as a result of this conversation, something dawns on Kea. She brings up the fact that Vorinclex was on Kaldheim, and they start to discuss how are the Phyrexians planning to actually make this happen and make the entire multiverse one. And it becomes apparent, and it was obvious from the end of the Dominaria United story, if you were listening in, that they plan to use a version of the World Tree from Kaldheim. So essentially, they're going to grow a tree, a realm breaker, that will allow the Phyrexians to go wherever they want, whenever they want. Before, they used to have to find a way to get agents to set up portals and slowly portal people in. This will be a direct gateway that they can just walk through with endless amounts of troops. So this is a massive problem for the entirety of the multiverse. The Phyrexians absolutely could not be allowed to get their hands on a domination tool of this level. And they had only days, according to Vivian, until Urabrask moved. The problem was, Tezzeret was involved with the plan, and that made everybody hesitate. Is this a trap? Putting that aside for the moment, Teferi goes off to see Saheeli Rai. And when he arrives, she is very kind to him and offers him some tea and biscuits. Teferi declines the biscuits, not interested in any more roach action, and settles in to talk to Saheeli about the Silex and more specifically, the Temporal Anchor. So when he looks over the Silex, he declares it to be perfect. Now Saheeli says, I'm only going off of schematics and an idea here. There may be flaws with it. But Teferi is more interested in the Temporal Anchor. It's a gigantic sculpture of curving fiery orange metal that Saheeli has built, and it's powered by the Weatherlight's Power Stone. It's a grim reminder of the Weatherlight being completed, and also a reminder of everything that is at stake, because the Weatherlight being taken and turned to Phyrexia is a pretty insane statement of the current state of affairs. So at that point, you can feel the urgency that Teferi has. He wants to be able to do this, travel through time as quickly as possible. And Saheeli is a little bit frustrated, but tells him that she will get it tested and should have it ready by nightfall. And also provides Teferi a little golden mechanical bird she had made for him, which chirps and lands on his shoulder. It's a nice little touch. After that, Teferi departs to meet with Ren and Seven. She had actually fulfilled a request for Teferi. He had a grove of plants. Metob fruit is what he's growing there. And Ren and Seven had infused the grove with magic to protect it, so the Metob would be healthy and Teferi could enjoy his favorite fruit. After talking with Ren and Six, he then finally met up with Elspeth. He offers her some of the Metob fruit, and they settle in and talk, with Elspeth ultimately deciding to join them against Phyrexia, and showing Teferi her new blade that provides halo magic that will take down the Phyrexians. And the story ends with Teferi being full of hope and inspired. That ends this installment of the story. I have to admit, it is a little bit weird. We're going all over the place. We went back in time, and now we're here right before Teferi even starts to go back in time. So I'm curious to see how all of this is going to continue to be stapled together. Thanks for coming by. If you enjoy what we're doing here, then you can support the channel by joining the Patreon or the channel membership. I will see you all for the next installment. Go enjoy some more lore in the meantime. And remember, my friends, lore is life.